Morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for having me. And my name is Jordan. As was mentioned, work at Google and had the pleasure of working on the GoEd Always Omega-3 advertising campaign with Ellen, who is just obviously amazing to work with, and just super happy to be here. And so this ran early last year for about 2.5 months, flighted campaign. Went really well. And just want to talk about the results before I hand it off to Patrick to really take a deeper dive into the insights and what we've learned and how we can leverage all of the data that we've gathered from that campaign. Cool. So obviously, pretty amazing results. Almost 100% of the traffic to alwaysomega3s.com was generated during that time by the Google campaign across various platforms. So Google Display Network, for those who don't know, it covers 94% of all websites on the internet. So anywhere you've ever seen banners or autoplay video, usually is run through Google. Search, everyone knows Google Search. What we leveraged search for was key in controlling the messaging and controlling where people are finding and learning, finding out information and learning about omega-3s, because there is obviously a bevy of misinformation out there. And YouTube, which is obviously one of the premier platforms, the premier platform for video online. And so we can take a deeper dive into the results of that. So within about 2.5 months, and again, this alone, these numbers might not mean much, and we can look more into that. But if you look, over 70 million impressions, so over 70 million times people were exposed to GoEd, to omega-3s, and had the opportunity to learn more. Views on YouTube, what that means is people that they had the opportunity to skip a video and they chose to watch the entire video. And clicks either from people searching for more information about omega-3s, or as you can see the bottom left, people searching about omega-3s and clicking through, or clicking through from display where they were reading content online and the GoEd ads and creative showed up alongside that. So campaign results, this is actually pretty astounding. And so it can give you some benchmarks. So view rate means true views. So the way YouTube works, for anyone that doesn't know, YouTube, whenever, let's say, someone is watching a video on omega-3s, let's say video titled "The Truth About Omega-3s," right? Maybe it's a Dr. Oz video where they want to learn more. Before that video will play, a pre-roll ad from GoEd will show, and the user has the opportunity to skip before 30 seconds. So anytime that user skips, GoEd doesn't pay as the advertiser. And typically what we see as a benchmark, it's around 20% for all videos that people choose not to skip. So 4 out of 5 times people are choosing to skip. What you see here, among 55 to 64-year-olds, which obviously is the one of the key demographics we're going after, was almost 50% of people that were watching related videos chose not to skip. Pretty astounding results. And then one thing that was very surprising to us was that sports, fitness buffs were almost as interested, but again, as a benchmark, 20% would be a solid number. The fact that we got almost 50% of people that were looking to watch a different video online, saw the GoEd ad, and were engaged enough, if they skipped after 29 seconds, it wouldn't count as a view through. So they chose to watch the entire video, which is pretty unbelievable results, and I think is a testament to the creative, to the video that we used, and that it was engaging for people that were really interested in omega-3s. And just to look at gender, males tended to be a bit more interested. And again, and Patrick can dive more deeply into this, sports and fitness and health, those were the key interest segments that that were truly resonating with our audience. And then conversions. So what the conversion means, what the most meaningful conversion for us was, it's not just a visit to the website that matters. Driving clicks is, it's pretty simplistic. It's actually driving true engagement when someone is interested enough to visit, right? So if you see here, about 10%, a little over 10% of 65-year-olds and over, when they came to the site, took the quiz. So just to give you a benchmark that we normally look for in terms of conversion rate, 1%. So 1 out of every 100 people that comes to a website that takes the action that you want that person to take, that's considered a decent result. So these segments, 65 plus, 45 to 54, 55 to 64, they converted at, again, a pretty astounding rate, which we have a hunch is a testament to the enthusiasm when people are looking to learn more, as well as the quality of the website and the quality of the campaign as we went through the optimizations. And the conversion rate was actually higher for females than males, but overall, I think, and we can take a deeper look at this, but overall, the key takeaway is that when people are interested enough to look for something or interested enough to actually visit and learn more, they're engaging a heck of a lot more than if you're not offering omega-3 information as an option or the right information as an option when they're actually educating themselves, right? When they are looking to educate themselves or are curious, just converted incredibly well. So about 10 times the rate of what we normally look for in certain segments. Cool. And so we can talk about the brand lift. And Patrick, I know, can speak more to this, but what we did was, with Ellen, we actually ran a brand lift study. What that means is it measures ad recall. So we take a segment of the campaign, a segment of people, we hide the ad campaign from them, and then we take a different segment and expose them to it, and afterwards we measure the difference in recall. It's important because when someone can recall the ad campaign, we also measure for those people purchase intent that Patrick will speak about, and that's obviously what I'm sure everyone in this room ultimately cares about is, even if you're a B2B company, every B2B company is B2B to C, and the C is the customers are what's driving that demand, right? So California led lift in brand interest more than doubled how interested people were in California in omega-3s as a product, right? So with that said, I want to pass it off to Patrick, who can take a deeper dive into what these numbers actually mean. And one thing I really hope everyone in the room takes away from this is not just the fact that, okay, you can spend money on an ad campaign and it can drive interest and it can drive purchase intent and drive sales lift, right? You can do that, but I think it's really important when we think about the messaging. What did we learn from this money spent? We didn't only garner new sales, but we also can understand what sort of messaging, where are people finding out their information, and just harness the power of the fact that you can control now with modern technology where people are actually are learning about the products that there's so much misinformation out there about. So anyway, with that said, I want to pass this off to Patrick. Here you go.
Thanks, Jordan. Fantastic. Well, my name is Patrick. I'm a measurement guru at Google in Dublin, so thank you for having us. To deep dive a bit in these numbers, right? So 7.8% relative lift in consideration. So what we did is when you watched the video or didn't watch the video, you then saw a survey on YouTube that asked you the question, would you consider buying any of these products in the near future? And the options were omega-3, fish oil, multivitamins, and probiotics, right? And then we compared control groups, so people who have not seen the video, people who skipped the video, and people who have seen the video. So people who have seen the video were 7.8% more likely to buy omega-3s in the near future. Well, that doesn't sound like much. But if you look a bit deeper, for instance, if you check the second number right there, the audience that is 65-year-olds and older was 130 times more likely to buy it. Specifically, before, so people who were in the control group and 65 years and older would 8% of them said, yeah, I would buy omega-3s in the future over any of the other. People who have seen the video, the number for people who have seen the video was 20%, right? So a strong uplift in terms of when you educate people, they are more likely to purchase the product. Well, this is based on a survey of 8,000 respondents, only of a certain number of which have been 65 years and older. But still, like, it's a significant number to look at. And if you compare that, for instance, to the view rate we saw earlier, that was on the conversion rate that earlier, 65 plus years might be an interesting, well, target audience. Mind, though, that we only targeted the YouTube campaign at people 45 years and older, as long as we knew, right? So that's important. Also, on the right-hand side with the 35%. So the consideration to buy from viewers to non-viewers was a difference of 35% relative lift. So if you skipped the video as opposed to chosen to see the video, you were 35% more likely to actually convert in the near future, or at least you said so. Right? We have a few more of the stats specifically in the appendix. What I want to do now is actually to dive a little bit more, well, not deeper, but take a step back actually and talk about big data. Can I have a show of hands how many of you are B2B or consider yourself B2B? All right? Who considers himself or herself to be B2C in the B2C business? All right? Who is undecided? Okay. So anywho, what I want to do now is step away a bit from the specific campaign that we ran and just talk a bit more about data and advertising and how to measure it, and how important it is actually to measure advertising. Now, a big coined phrase by John Wanamaker was, back in the early days of marketing, half the money I spent in advertising is wasted. The problem is, I don't know which half, right? For how many of you does that resonate? Quick show of hands again. Okay, slightly, I'm not sure, yeah. So yeah, the problem is in old school advertising, old school marketing, you're kind of all over the shop. You're running a TV campaign, you're running a press campaign, you have a sales team, you may have a key account team, and they might not necessarily be related, right? They might not necessarily be aligned, right? In the modern days, you might run actually you might have a website, and you might even run Google search campaigns or any other search campaigns. So what I recommend you to do is align all these, right? Have your certain budget set straight and organize what are your offline advertising efforts or marketing efforts. And that can be just as well the money you spend on traveling to a trade fair. Have your online budget ready, right? This is just an excerpt of a few different measures. There's a plentyfold of more. And also direct sales counts as marketing, counts as advertising. So if you have a sales force that's actually reaching out to people, how much do they bring in? So organizing your data flow. That means, where does your data come from? And then you want to have one tool, at best your customer relationship management system, or any kind of analytics system that puts them all together. And this is difficult, right? Because a sales team might work with phone calls, right? It might run not necessarily with conversion rates as it is on a website. So you want to align all these. And what I want to talk about is how you actually do that, and give you a framework on how to do that. Now the question is, well, okay, he's standing there and he's talking about measurement and how I should align my advertising efforts, but actually why? Why? It worked well so far, apparently. Well, my marketing efforts so far, I have a fixed marketing budget, I have a person who's looking after it. Why should I, go through all the efforts and put it all together and organizing it in one data flow and so on and so forth? Well, the reason is because you can, and because you should. We have a changing business and consumer behavior, and to illustrate that, I just wanted to get a quick show of hands again. How many of you own a smartphone? Okay, and honest, how many of you have used the smartphone while one of the presentations were ongoing at the moment? All right. Why did I ask this question? Because a study showed by Nokia, and this was in 2010, it was updated, 180 times you look at your smartphone every day. And that could be a variety of things, right? Right here I have the most recent hint for the Valentine's Day, so if you haven't checked that out or haven't got a gift yet, it's time to do it. But anyhow, so you do it, and that is regardless of if you're a business person or if you're a youngster, if you're over 55, over 45, it really doesn't matter. And this is important. So, and these interactions are of various kinds. You might check your email on the phone in the morning while you're on the way to work. You might listen to a song. In the evening, you might check business updates on a search engine. You might browse the web, or you might watch a video in the evening before you go to bed. Now, this is important. This is not replacing old advertising in terms of TV and press, but rather complementing it, right? And as the devices are getting more and more established in our world, it's also actually possible to measure the engagement that you get from your target audience. So when we want to, we know now we should kind of organize our data flow, and we kind of should, well, take advantage of the various digital assets that there are and then various digital possibilities, right? But before we do that, we actually want to talk about a bit, what do we actually want to measure? What is our final goal? What is our objective? Now, most of you will think, well, my ultimate objective is sales, revenue, gross margin, and so on and so forth. So my numbers look good, right? So I can pay my employees, right? So I can run my business. But in advertising, it's a bit more than that. You actually have a lot more possibilities to measure conversion. The conversion could be anything that is basically your objective, right? So while you might measure online sales or offline sales, you have the possibility with online advertising specifically, but also with offline advertising, actually, to measure time on website, the amount of phone calls you get in from a specific point of view, right? How many people actually visit your store and look into your store, and yes, that's actually possible. Order tracking, newsletter signups, all these different conversions are kind of milestones on your way to the eventual sale. So let's say your macro conversions, your ultimate goal is obviously sales, right? That accounts for B2C as well for B2B. But on the way to there, when you run actually advertising or marketing, you might want to measure milestones on the way there. So how many phone calls do you get in after a certain campaign? How much time on a website do people spend when they click, let's say, on a search ad or on a YouTube ad? And that's a difference, so you can measure that. And from here, I want to go into a bit of a framework specifically. So this might be your customer journey. On the left-hand side, this is your target audience, or at least you think what the target audience is. And you might interact with them on a various ground. You might go to a trade fair. You might run, as we did, a YouTube or TV campaign. You might run Facebook ads even, or online search marketing. Or you might actually have a sales force that's actually actively reaching out to potential leads, people who have signed up to newsletters, people who signed up online for more information, and so on and so forth. And this customer journey you actually want to organize. Now, this is a framework from Avinash Gauchik, which is one of the measurement gurus around these days. And he says that there's a framework called See, Think, Do, Care. And a lot of you who went to business school will think this reminds themselves of the AIDA concept, right? Awareness, interest, desire, action. And it's actually really close. So you want not only to organize your target audience in terms of demographics, interests, right? You also want to organize your marketing efforts according to where your people are in the customer journey. So you might have people who are actually looking after their health, right? But they don't know your product yet. They don't know your service yet. And this is from a consumer point of view, right? So for them, you have to run campaigns that actually educate them, that actually make aware that omega-3s are existing, or your specific product or service is existing. The consideration phase is slightly different. These are people who have heard of omega-3s, and they may have even heard that it's beneficial or not for your health. So here you have people who may actually be considering buying your product already, but haven't just yet. Thirdly, in the do phase, you have people who are actually buying the product or looking for the product already. So they might have been previous customers. They're actually just about to look at these are the people in the supermarket or who are looking online for your specific product. And then lastly, the care phase. These are people who are regularly buying, your fans, right? Who are actually bringing in their friends and family to buy omega-3s or eat more fish and so on. Now, I did my best to give you a few examples what actually you could do or what kind of marketing efforts would fill in. So a blog post, a social media, or the YouTube videos, the awareness campaigns we ran, this is more of the these are C activities. Whilst when you give out samples when you give out recommendations, when you're present on health reviews and so on, or when you want people to go to your contact page. This is the people in the think phase. Now, people in the do phase, those are actually the ones that you can most easily target, right? They are really close to the purchase. They are actively looking for something. They actually have it in their shopping cart already. They may actually call in to buy, right? And just for a moment, this is different from somebody who calls in just to seek information, right? So you want to organize your customers or your potential customers in these buckets, and then eventually also organize, well, your various marketing efforts in these buckets. What is important then is, when you recall, we talked about conversions, micro and macro. Macro being sales, micro being any other milestone along the way. Now, let's say you want to measure your awareness campaigns with sales. That will hardly work out. Because somebody who has seen a YouTube video will most unlikely go straight to your website and buy the product or take up the phone, right? Maybe you drag them from the awareness bucket to the consideration bucket, but you can't just measure the success of your awareness campaigns with sales. This is why we actually measured our YouTube campaign with the amount of time people have taken the quiz, or how many times people have chosen to see the video. On the do phase, on the other hand, then you can measure with sales and ROI, because those are people who are actually actively looking, and these are people who are close to the purchase. Now, these are different examples what you actually could measure, right? So if you run an awareness campaign, you could measure time on website. You can measure how many times people visit your contact page, or video views. In the think phase, so in the consideration, if you run a consideration campaign, you might actually want to measure how many newsletters registrations you get, how many leads you get in, how many phone calls. And then these will eventually lead then to sales in the do phase. So you want to transfer your different customer audiences from awareness to consideration to action or to do. And these are, well, obviously assisted sales over the long term. So this is important to understand that, well, great that I got 1 million views on YouTube. Well, that doesn't bring me a single dollar. Well, not quite yet, but if on the long term, yes. And you want to measure that step by step. And I give you here a few examples where different categories would fall in. So when you run social media campaigns, right, on the left-hand side, these are mostly awareness campaigns, right? You will hardly get anyone, or even YouTube. YouTube would fall into in the consideration phase as well. But these people will hardly, straight away buy or purchase, right, or call in. They might rather actually just be engaging with your content a bit more. On the other hand, when you have a list of emails, those are people who have been interested in your product before. So then you can actually measure these with sales. This is an action campaign. You want people to drive action, actually to buy a product, to call in, and so on, to take orders. Now, it's important, for instance, SEM and SEO. SEM is search engine marketing. SEO is search engine optimization. So how you actually ranking on let's say, Google search. This can be along the whole path. So it might be that, and this you can actually even categorize. So somebody who is looking for your specific product name is more likely in the do phase because they know your product and they want to buy it. On the other hand, if somebody's just Googling omega-3, they're most likely in the consideration phase or even in the awareness phase, right? And so you need to adapt your messaging depending on what people are looking for, or depending on in which phase are people in. All right. So let me finish off with 5 steps to implement a measurement strategy. First of all, start measuring anything, right? If you have a website, look at your web analytics tool. If you have a Salesforce, measuring how many phone calls do they do. Second, define your conversions. Obviously, you want to do sales, but what are the milestones in between, right? What do you want to measure in between? How many leads do you get, and so on. Then track everything that is relevant, right? Don't just measure it and leave the data aside, but actually look at it and track how many times, which campaign is actually running how. And then define your customer journey. So define where the people are in the see phase, when they are in the do phase, when they are in the think phase, and when they actually become maybe a fan and eventually turn to being the care phase. And then associate different marketing events with it. So a YouTube campaign would much rather is an awareness campaign, whilst, for instance, people who are looking on Google search, just an example, would be more in the do phase, in the action campaign. And then optimize for success. The campaign or marketing channel that is driving the best results should get the most investment. And that's just as easy as it is. With that, I wish you good luck, and I thank you for your attention. And I think we're having a Q&A now.